so excited to have you guys tonight. This is our first ever holiday bash for Startup Grind, and we have a ton of startups here tonight, and we're excited. But let me tell you about this guy right here. Matt Hulett, largest privately held tech company in Boise. ClickBank. And Matt will ask you, what does ClickBank do? So we're gonna have an honest, can I ask an honest? How many of you know what ClickBank does? Awesome, Matt's gonna change that tonight. He came here from Seattle just to change that answer. Okay, Matt, give us 3 facts, startup facts about you.
Fun facts or?
Fun facts, I like that.
Well, maybe we have so many entrepreneurs here. My worst pitch is I actually spilled Pepsi all over Scully's laptop, who was formerly the CEO of Apple, as I was pitching. And he said, well, that's ironic. The other time I was at Sundance with one of my startups and I flew off a mechanical bull into Bruce Willis. That was fun. The Bruce Willis. You wanted fun facts. I started my career out with a company where my product was being downloaded 300 times a day, and then when I left it was 300,000 times a day. So that was like a really cool company that maybe is a little bit long in the tooth now, but that was a really cool first experience. So those are fun facts.
I hit Bruce Willis all the time, accidentally. Okay, so I want to hear about your first startup experience.
I had a t-shirt business in college, and I got myself funded through college with it. I won't really talk about what the shirt said because it's a little objectionable. But sex does sell, let's just say that. And then my first startup was a company called Atom Films that I was a founding partner of, and we were basically YouTube before YouTube. We basically thought that over the top was going to happen in terms of cable and network TV, and we started licensing films and animations, and we started discovering talent like the Jib Jab guys. People know who those guys are. We found them, and we had some Oscar-winning directors work for us, and that was one of our first startups. It's a very cool business.
That's really cool. Okay, so you've had some successful exits, but let's talk about fundraising. Can you coach us through some of your fundraising learned lessons?
Oh yeah. Well, most people think it's a sales process. It's not a sales process. It's actually a process where you pretend that you don't need the money and you're trying to sell magic beans. So the entire time during the process, if you feel like if you come from a sales background, you're going to be horrible at raising money unless you learn this lesson that you actually cannot sell. It's the art of unselling. The fact that you are blasé and feel like you have something that no one else has. I call it selling the magic beans. And your job is to get out of there and make them think that you have magic beans and no one else does, and don't sell it. If you sell too hard, you won't get the deal.
That's awesome. So you've raised money from Sequoia, Draper, just a few others. Yeah, talk to us about that.
I'm a 4th generation Washingtonian, and all day so is anyone trying to raise money here? A lot of people. So bring out the Boise when you do it. So I was down meeting a friend of mine who used to be the COO and CEO of Groupon, and we were at a restaurant. He said, "You're from Boise, Idaho," and I literally kicked my shoes up, and I said, "Yeah, I'm from Boise. Boise's weird. It's awesome." And so in the Bay Area, I think they see so much of the Stanford minted Ivy League kind of pitches that are perfect, that I think that we have a very interesting ecosystem that's awesome, it's developing. And I think that, for example, when I raise money, I'll literally walk down Sound Hill Road with my suit on as to show that I'm a Northwesterner trying to get exercise. One of my old investors, Mike Moritz of Sequoia, pulled up alongside me in his Mercedes and literally said, "Are things that bad that you're walking?" I said, "Yeah, I gotta get some exercise. It's 90 degrees out." So I think when you're pitching, you have to be unique, you have to be ostentatious, you have to be a maverick, and you have to stand out from everyone else. Everyone says you need 10 times the best product than anyone else. I think you have to pitch like that. I think you have to pitch like you own the place and you're very unique Otherwise, you're just one of many people they're going to say no to. They're going to say no to 98% of the people they talk to.
That's awesome. I actually have a question for Brad now. Brad, come on up for a second. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Matt and why you brought in Matt.
We're in a rock band, we wear the same leather.
Yeah. Are we allowed to use vulgarities here? I'm supposed to talk about what I think about Matt? I'm going to get all verklempt here. No, Matt's one of the best connected guys that I've ever met. He, no matter who we're working with, he's like, oh, do you know Bob Schultz there? Yeah, you know, he's actually the COO and CFO, and he has a fantastic memory. You know, he likes whatever beer or whatever he likes. So Matt's got and he's very, he's really visionary. He likes to think outside the box, and he kind of lives outside the box. And we have a lot of fun together. Actually, it's probably one of the better working relationships I've ever had. Everybody can tell who's in my office because they can hear his cackle laugh, even when my door's shut. And we usually spend a lot of our time when we're thinking strategically, just actually having a really good time laughing together. And so we actually accomplish quite a bit as a result, I think. So he's a great guy to work with. Wow, suddenly it all got shifted.
I gave Jess $20 because it's review season.
That's awesome. So raise your hand again if you're in the fundraising, at least mentality. Okay, do any of you guys have a question for Brad? Or for Matt, sorry. Or Brad. Brad, he's done it too.
How many times of hearing no before you finally give up?
How many times do you hear no before you give up? Well, you never give up. You really don't. I mean, the squeaky wheel. I've chased people down in parking lots. The last time I raised money, I actually literally had to raise money in 45 days because I was getting married on the 46th day. So my pitch was, you don't understand, I have to raise, it was my Series B, which is a very difficult series to raise because they expect a certain amount of revenue traction. And everyone says, well, I want more revenue. It's always like, come back to me when you have this revenue. I go, no, you don't understand. I've got all these other term sheets. I'm lying, of course. I got those other term sheets lining up. I got to close in 46 days, 45 days because I'm getting married on the 46th day. And that worked. False sense of some scarcity around the deal. But I think that generally, I've asked this question with entrepreneurs, if depends on the stage, it's harder in Series B if you don't have the revenue to show for it. C can be difficult as well. A, I find to be easier, but typically I usually talk to 50 people in order to get 2 term sheets. I know some people talk to more, and it's kind of a cultivated process where you talk 10 to 15 at a time and revise your pitch, but yeah, it's generally about 50 people to get two term sheets.
What's the craziest question an investor ever asked you?
The question was, what's the craziest question an investor ever asked me? Oh boy, let me think about that. Oh yeah, so I was pitching, and I refused to have my team go offline to pitch. I didn't want my CTO to go with me, and that's a key person to take with you, kind of the Starsky and Hutch, and they want to see who Hutch is, assuming you're Starsky. And this guy, the partnership said, Matt, we really love you, we love the idea, but we believe that there's no one on your team besides you. So we want to know that there's actually technical people there, so we're going to do an on-site. So I thought that was pretty funny. They actually said, we think you're such a good salesman, there's really no team behind this. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay, so like the Starsky and Hutch, what advice do you have if you're going in for a pitch?
It's a cultivated process, so you have to start out with, I usually try to pick the VCs I don't want their money. The VCs actually, they're on my B list first, because they'll give you raw feedback, and they'll have you revise your pitch before you go out to the folks that are on your A list. I try to do that like with 1 to 5 people, usually at a time, and then revise along the way. I usually have someone at the office who's usually like a Marcom kind of person, where I literally am on Evernote, sending emails on Evernote, having us revise, kind of A/B testing the presentation as we go. And then I usually bring along my technical person, because it's usually intellectual property, IP, that they want to see as well. And then you kind of curate it, you cultivate it, and you don't try to do 50 people all at once. You try to really study the 5 people that you're going to talk to. Even if you don't want their money, you really do a good job of figuring out who their portfolio companies are, their track records, the individuals, and that makes a difference. Follow them on Twitter, social media, do all the work. It takes a long time, 6 months of preparation before you actually talk to somebody. But those are some of the steps you need to do.
When we were at lunch, you were talking about one of your first experiences with your startup when you were young, and we're still young, and you had an incredible board. Would you share with us who was on that board, and how do you find key mentors and strategic people to be on your board?
We were, I was just leaving a bigger company, and when I oftentimes tell people, stop and reflect on what you've done and enjoy it, because you never know when you'll get that experience again. When I was in my mid-20s, I had a board of Mike Moritz of Sequoia, Rich Barton, who founded Expedia, Frank Biondi, who started HBO, Bob Daly, who ran the Dodgers or co-ran Time Warner with Terry Semel. Terry Semel ran Yahoo, was Investors in Us. Rob Burgess, who started Macromedia. Literally, it was like, we did not deserve this board. I'd walk into this boardroom, talking about entertainment, and really, like, oh, okay, son, why don't you sit down? It was an incredible board, and I think what we ended up doing was trying to find the best mentors available, because there were so many different things we were trying to do, and we wanted to go for the best people available. And so I would encourage you to try to talk to the best people available for that specific subject. They can't open doors for you. It's hard to get them. You have to be passionate, can't say no. But just go for the best folks around the table, whether advisors or board members.
We are on Twitter as well. We have hashtag SGBoise tonight, and the best tweets that go on actually win an awesome prize tonight. So pictures, whatever it is, we're going to watch Twitter too. Okay, questions for Matt? Yeah.
So in current fundraising, would you go with a convertible note if you were a young company or equity?
Well, there's, I've kind of gone the other way, where I don't like being diluted. Now, current situation is different, but you're in a startup. If you're bootstrapping, I think you try to preserve as much as you can in the company. I like convertible, personally. I think you can get really good angel deals that aren't so dilutive. It's all over the map. I think it depends on the market. So in Seattle, you'll get a pretty good angel term sheet without, $1 million, maybe you get 20% taken out of your company, something like that in that range. It depends on the firm, it depends on the company, but in general, I think you can bootstrap pretty far these days. Bootstrap as far as you can and then raise your Series A at the highest valuation you can, but not so high that Series B looks bad. So it's a judgment call. But as long as you can go without diluting yourself out before your Series A round, that's what I like to do, but it's different. I think the terms are so friendly now for entrepreneurs. Look at Angels List. I met a guy the other day who raised $10 million on Angels List direct. So I would try to not dilute yourself as much as you can, especially if you're the Slack for sales guys.
You mentioned in the Seattle area that you can, you heard of a deal $1 million for 20%. That's something that we're definitely not seeing in the Treasure Valley. How can we educate our angel investors to not act like VCs?
It takes time. The question is, how do you educate Boise investors not to be as conservative on deal terms? Paraphrase. Sure. It takes time because Seattle 20 years ago was kind of a bad situation in terms of startups. It was Microsoft, WTIA, formerly WSA in terms of the trade organization, and not that much tech talent per se. And it was all the spin-offs and the wealth creation from the anchor tenants in Seattle that created all these we call them baby Bills, baby Bill Gateses. And then with the WSA really pushing a specific skill set in terms of certificate programs. This is a long-winded answer to your question. And then that created, and the University of Washington started pushing a lot of the programming languages at university that Microsoft wanted, like .NET. Like you can't go outside Washington finding anyone that is a .NET programmer. Washington's all over the place. So that took a long time. In fact, I still have friends of mine that only go down to the valley, Silicon Valley, to raise money. And so it's still conservative in most entrepreneurs' terms in Washington. So it's got to be really conservative here, if that's true. And I would encourage people to go out and outside this market and find capital, because I don't think it's the capital that's the problem. I think it's the teams with good ideas that come first.
And do you think those teams that are even coming from Boise, Idaho can go to Seattle or
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Silicon Valley and
Absolutely.
actually get meetings?
Absolutely. It's not about where you live. Again, I would embrace not that Boise's weird, but embrace the weird. If you come and sing in Boise, Idaho, and I have this $1 billion idea and this great team, you'll get attention. You may be asked by the VCs to move out there. That occasionally happened in Seattle, but not anymore. But yeah, I would encourage you to go out and shop a term sheet that you have locally and see if people are going to bite. I do think the fact that there's not a really strong local venture presence, not angel but venture presence, is a problem, and that needs to be fixed. And then when we start seeing that getting fixed, then you're going to start seeing the wallets open up and people less focused on a deal versus how to do value creation. But it's going to take time. It'll happen. There's a buzz going on about Boise.
I'm going to have all our showcase startups come line up while we do our last two questions. I'll have you guys come here. Okay, we got two questions.
So I'm the new chapter president for the Keiretsu Forum, Boise, Sun Valley, and I just wanted to correct you and say, if someone goes through our deal screening and they do get past the screening committee, they can present, they get up to go on the road, they can present in front of investors in Silicon Valley, in Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, BC. So we're really excited. I came from the commercial real estate, commercial brokerage for 30 years in Seattle and recently moved to Boise. And I think we're dying to fund great Boise companies. So if you need an invitation, we have our monthly meeting tomorrow and I can give you my card.
That's awesome. Give it up. How many people knew that before that announcement?
Welcome to Boise, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. You're going to get a lot of people. Last question.
Washington just passed a law that's going to allow equity crowdfunding if you're a Washington corporation. How do you see that spreading to places like Idaho or Utah or other states?
Well, it's funny. My wife works for a Boise-based medtech crowdfunding company called Health Funder. If anyone knows Health Funder. Health Funder? Anyone? Health Funder? Plug for my wife's company. It's going to catch on. I think it'll be here. When? I don't know. I don't know who's pushing for it, but you know, the mentality in the angel network in Seattle is kind of funny. I was talking to a large, he's not a large gentleman. He came from a large cap company, and he made a statement to me as I was leaving Seattle. He said, "Look, angel investing isn't really." It's not really a specific financial goal of mine. It's actually something I'm supposed to do in order to give back. And so you see a lot of these, the politics are very different there, we don't have to go through that. But there's very much of an impetus towards giving back in terms of your financial dollars, and that's driving a lot of progressive thinking around financing. Now the flip side, that was the same city, Seattle was the same city that blocked Uber for a while, so it's kind of funky. I don't know, they enabled it. So I think it'll get here. You know, Health Funder's doing med tech here. I think it'll get here.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you everyone for being here tonight.